let's move on then to one transfer story that raised, and it's a player who's been in the spotlight a while, right? Douglas Luiz have been linked to in a couple of reports to Liverpool. My first suggestion was like Aston Villa would be absolutely bananas to sell anybody in January, considering the season they're having as well, but it's another defensive midfielder. It feels like we're getting linked to every single defensive midfielder around. Since the Andre stuff seems to cool down, Neil, here's another one that's come on the press. It doesn't feel like too much, but he's a really good player, and you can see why everyone's going to be wanting after him. But
I don't think he's a defensive midfielder to start with. I think he's
box to box now.
He's a really good footballer, isn't he? The two of them, him and Camara.
I like John McGinn as well, mate. I think John McGinn's brilliant.
John McGinn's a good player as well, absolutely. Villa are a good side, aren't they, at the moment, flying. He was one that he was linked, obviously, the back end of the of last season, the back end of the summer window last season. You know, he was talked about, and I remember speaking to someone at Villa, and they were like, absolutely no chance we're selling him. Certainly not late in the window, but at any point. He's obviously someone who I think is boosting his reputation big time at the moment. He's been in great form. You know, he plays a lot of games as well. I think that's another feather in his cap. You know, I think he doesn't miss many. But like you say, I think it'd be a difficult one to get him out of Villa. Certainly mid-season, maybe next summer if they were to sort of really go down that route. But what would he be age-wise? 26, 27?
He turns 26 in May. So yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So. Maybe just on the sort of cusp of being the right kind of age, but yeah, I'd be surprised if Liverpool was sort of going to put all the money in that. I think it'd cost them an absolute fortune to get him out of Villa. There's a few of Villa that you'd sort of say are in that position. You know, Jacob Ramsey, obviously, Luiz, Camara, McGinn, Watkins. You know, they've got some Diaby. You know, they've got a lot of assets there, but they're not in a position where they're needing to sell players and comply. They're actually in a position where they're building, aren't they? So yeah, I think Douglas Luiz is probably one that's going to be staying at Villa. Yeah,
the report from 90 Minutes says Arsenal obviously tried to buy him in 2022. Yeah. They continue to want him. Manchester City and knock him round as well.
He came through at City, didn't he?
Sorry,
he was previously at City.
Go back to City because it like I say. I can see the links because I think he's brilliant, but that January especially feels like a non-starter for that one. Looking on January, we spoke about it briefly a couple of weeks ago, but we are getting closer, obviously, to the window opening. Is there anything in the squad that you think, you know, Liverpool could really absolutely do with? Because listen, Liverpool have got loads of midfielders. They might not have an actual number 6, like a specific one, so if they want to do that potentially, but I remember going into last January, and I'll be honest, I thought it might have been a defender. They ended up going to sign Cody Gakpo. Sorry, I thought it might be a midfielder, yeah. And they went to end up signing Cody Gakpo, so who knows? Yeah. But I don't know, it doesn't feel like this January's one where we're sitting here going, they are absolutely desperate for X, Y and Z. I think we'd all like him at number 6, but it doesn't feel like Liverpool are going to be rushing into the market to do something.
No, not rushing. I mean, there's 6 weeks or 5 weeks to go, or 4 weeks to go, which things can happen that can really influence you.
Every defender,
or every, you know, as I say, you're looking at Jota, you know, you could more follow, your attack all of a sudden looks light, and you think, oh God, we're in trouble. But the position they've put themselves in means they can be a bit more relaxed about it. And what they have done with Gakpo and with Diaz in the past is and Van Dijk in a different way, they've either corrected the mistake or they've brought forward a plan, you know, from the summer. I think they're in that position now where it's like, okay, well, if the defender or the number 6 or the left back that we feel is the one that we want long term, and all of a sudden there's a chance to get them in January, when we can maybe do that, as opposed to solving an immediate problem by, you know, going and getting a Ozan Kabak or a Ben Davies or a Stephen Corker. Fingers crossed they're not in that position. They've obviously, January's not the toughest month in terms of schedule. Obviously they've got the big issue of Salah and AFCON around that time, but it's not. Obviously there's the FA Cup, maybe there's a League Cup.
2 League Cup games.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, fingers crossed there are, but it's not the worst sort of schedule where you're looking and saying, oh God, like we could be in real sort of difficulty, you know, squad wise there. I think Liverpool are at this moment able to be a bit more picky and choosy in terms of what they want, and I think that might explain why the Andre links have sort of, or the Andre sort of situation has moved away. The desperation to get someone like that isn't as great, and if it is, or if they are going to do that, they may be able to, bad way of putting it, but set the sights a bit higher and say, actually no, we want someone who we think is actually top level, as opposed to a potential option. So I wouldn't rule anything out in January at all, but I think it might be more like the Diaz kind of signing, or the Gakpo, where it's actually something that they were going to do in the summer, or they were planning to do at a later date, brought forward, as opposed to, right, we need to go and fix a hole.
Yeah, I suppose as well, what you can do in January, you can assess where you are. If they are right in the middle of a league title challenge, you go, you know what, it's worth pushing the button on someone.
Exactly, and I think Diaz is probably the better example of this. That it wasn't an absolutely necessary signing at the time. They had Minamino, Origi, Firmino, Mane, Salah, Jota. They didn't need another forward necessarily, but what it did do, it gave an impetus, and it gave a freshness, and it sort of it upped the game of a few players. Mane in particular, I think, stepped up in that period. And it can sort of just give you an extra bit of oomph.
Diaz scored in a Champions League semi-final.
Well, Diaz was man of the match in both domestic cup finals for Liverpool. He started three finals after joining. He was on the pitch sort of.
They needed him in Villarreal. They were getting battered.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it can work in that way, where it's not necessarily the signing that's absolutely vital to make, because your squad's in so much disarray, but it can just give you something that you didn't even know you were missing almost. I think, what was the line from Pep Lijnders, water in the desert. Maybe there's someone who can provide something similar in the second half of this season. And if Liverpool are in a position where they're in the League Cup semi-final, they're through in the Europa League, they're in the middle of a title race, the more the merrier in terms of quality players, absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out that clip from Journo Insights. If you want to go and check out the whole show, including talk about Alisson and Jota's injuries, Conor Bradley, Douglas Luiz, Joel Matip, and loads more, head on over to redmenplus.com now. Sign up from as little as $6.99 a month, and you'll get that show in your ears and in your eyes every single week, along with all our other amazing content. So yeah, go and check it out at redmenplus.com.
Hey, thank you so much for checking out the content today. If you want to get your name in and amongst these wonderful people, then head to redmenplus.com. Join as a legend tier subscriber. You're going to get free merchandise codes. You're going to get in our Discord, and you're going to get your name at the end of YouTube videos. Yes, redmenplus.com, legend tier status.